Namaste, my friends. I want to show you something interesting. It is possible to have a birth chart with no ascendant. The ascendant does not exist. Believe it or not. Let me show this to you. It's interesting. And we'll learn something about how houses are defined and things like that, and problems you could run into if you're doing charts of people born at very northern latitudes. Okay, so here's the deal. If somebody's born on the Arctic Circle, at the time of day when normally we would expect late Pisces or early Aries to be rising, the ascendant does not exist. By not exist, what I mean is the horizon plane and the ecliptic plane at this time of day are identical. They're one and the same thing. The ecliptic plane is sitting, horizontal. It's right on. The ecliptic plane is the horizon plane. We define the ascendant as where the ecliptic plane intersects the horizon plane. Well, it intersects everywhere. They're one and the same thing. And here's a chart. There it is. This is a chart done at 66 north, 33 minutes, 44 seconds, which I Googled it, and that was the value that they gave for the Arctic Circle in 2012. So here I am in January 2nd, 2012 at 11:13:57 a.m. I just used 0 west longitude, and I have 6 Pisces rising. However, this 6 Pisces rising is almost arbitrary, and I'll show you a few examples of what I mean by that. First of all, you're looking at this chart and you may be confused as to what's going on. So let me show you what's going on. I'm going to change this wheel style. Let me right-click and change the wheel style to an equally spaced. Now you can probably relate to it better. I'll click OK. What's happening is the midheaven is 0, Capricorn 0, 0. The 11th house cusp is 0, Capricorn 12. The 12th house cusp is 0, Capricorn 39. I happen to have coke houses. You'll run into similar problems with any quadrant house system. With porphyry. Anyway, let's just say most quadrant house systems. Here, the 10th house is only 12 minutes in size, and the 11th house is very small, so both of these houses are only stretching 39 minutes. And this happens. So if I use a wheel style that shows me the actual size of the houses, they're all stuck right there. The 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th cusps are all right there, and all the cusps 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all right there within about a degree of each other, and that's what happens. You get weird things. And let me show you something else. This is arguably more disturbing. I think clearly more disturbing. If I go 1 second later, I'm going to add 1 second. I'm in the time. Click on this little guy here to go to time adjust. Let me change this to 1 second. 1 second. So instead of 11:13:57, I'm going to go forward 1 second, and watch this. The ascendant 6 Pisces, and now it's 23 Taurus. Crazy. In 1 second, we've gone from early Pisces, over Aries, over most of Taurus, whatever that is, 80 degrees, whatever it is. Huge distance in 1 second. So what's going on there? What's going on is, to help you understand it, let me show you something else. Let me go back to that wheel style where the houses are equally spaced, and let me do it again. If I do the time adjust, go forward 1 second. Now look at the midheaven, 0 Capricorn. Well, it's still 0 Capricorn, which makes sense. So the midheaven's acting pretty normally. What's happening is the ascendant's jumping all over the place. And if I go another second, now that the ascendant's jumped from late Taurus to the middle of Gemini, it's going at crazy speeds all over the place. And the midheaven's actually moving pretty nicely. If I move forward 2 hours, I've got 0 Capricorn here. 2 hours later, it's moved almost a sign, which is what it should do. I go 2 hours later. It's moved another sign to late Aquarius, another sign to early Aries, a little over 30 degrees. Midheaven's acting nicely. Thank you, Midheaven. I like you. Early Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. It's going right around very nicely, and the Ascendant's going crazy, insane, jumping wildly all over the place, and it's hard to tell what's going on, and it's hard to tell where it is. Now, why is this happening? What's going on? What's going on, I can show you by looking at what the sky actually looks like. If I click on this Maps, and then I click on Sky Map, it shows us a picture of the sky at this moment. The yellow is the equatorial plane, and it's right where it should be. This left side is above the horizon, the right side is below the horizon. I've got circular horizon selected over here. There's different perspectives that you can select. And what's happened is, because I have horizon selected, the horizon, which is red, is by definition, because I've selected it, to be around the outside edge. It's the circle, but the ecliptic plane, which is green, is the same as the horizon plane. It's one and the same thing. And so sometimes it's showing red, sometimes it's showing green, like over here, it looks greenish, and it's alternating green and red because they are identical. And same from the perspective below the horizon. So the horizon and the ecliptic plane are the same, and they're really intersecting everywhere, and to the best of the calculations, maybe by some fraction of a second of distance, it's come up as best it can with where the Ascendant appears to be. And because the ecliptic plane and the horizon are the same, and they're separating very slightly, the Ascendant's moving wildly and crazily around the circle, and at some moment is actually the entire circle. So that's what's going on. The Ascendant is difficult to define, and at best is moving extremely fast or standing still, sometimes going backwards, acting rather chaotically, while the midheaven is trudging along in a nice, respectable, normal way that we can deal with. So there you go. That's the bottom line. At the Arctic Circle, at certain times of the day, we don't really know where the Ascendant is or how to even think about what the Ascendant is. And if we move close to the Arctic Circle, like here's a chart where I moved 1 minute of latitude south to 66 north, 3244, which is about a mile south. The behavior looks a little more normal, but it's still a little crazy in this sense. Well, first of all, I've got this problem of all these houses being small, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to right-click, select the equally spaced, click OK, just so that I can see where the cusps are. Remember, even though it's showing these big 30-degree areas, it's only about 3 degrees from here to here, from the 10th cusp to the 12th cusp. But let me go 1 second forward. Go to the time adjust. Set this back to 1 second. And I've got 28 Pisces rising. 1 second later, I have 4 Aries rising. So the Ascendant's moved 6 degrees in 1 second. Now that's blazingly fast, but at least it's a little less chaotic. If I go another second, it moved another 5 degrees or so. So what happens is, as you get a mile or two away from the Arctic Circle, the houses move blazingly fast to the point where you can't calculate them accurately. 5 degrees a second at certain times of the day. You would need to know the birth time within fractions of a second, which obviously cannot be done, and so you can't calculate it accurately. But it's not quite as chaotic. I'll show you another example to show you it's a little bit chaotic, but not just jumping wildly all over the place. Because the horizon plane and the ecliptic plane are slightly different now. They're not as identical, not as close to being identical as when we're right on the Arctic Circle. And I'll show you something else. if we go to Tromsø, Norway, which is 69 North 40, it's quite a ways north. What would that be? Probably 100, 200 miles or something north of the Arctic Circle. As we know, there are people living up there, significant sized towns or even cities. And if I do the time adjust, we'll get some interesting behavior. Like, let's move 1 hour. I've got 0 Aries rising, which I wasn't even able to get 0 Aries rising on the Arctic Circle. And I'll go forward 1 hour. Well, it's gone back to Aquarius. Let me do a minute. From 0 Aries, 1 minute later, the Ascendant's going backwards. It's going 2 degrees backwards. Go another minute forward. I'm going forward in time. The Ascendant's going 2 degrees retrograde per minute. Now it's going about 1 degree, maybe 1.5 or so. It's moving it'll change speeds. It's moving now about 1 degree a minute or so retrograde. So it'll go backwards. That's just interesting to know. And I followed this around the zodiac, and I'll show you what I noticed. What I noticed, okay, we already covered all this. Oh, I'll get back to this. No, I didn't cover that yet. Okay, here's what I noticed for Tromsø, Norway. The Ascendant went backwards. This is for January 3rd, 2012. We could see what happens at other times of the year. But it goes from Aries, retrograde, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn. Then it jumps 180 degrees. And then goes forward, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. Jumps back to 180 degrees to Gemini, and then goes retrograde. So it's going retrograde from Gemini through Capricorn, flips 180 degrees, goes forward, and then jumps back. It actually covers all 12 signs. Now here we're defining the Ascendant as the intersection of the ecliptic plane and the horizon plane on the east side of the meridian plane, and that's what happens. So it's interesting. It can go retrograde, it can jump around. This whole time the midheaven's trudging along forward, doesn't jump around. It behaves kind of nicely. So these are things to know about. Again, bottom line is the worst situation, worst in meaning most confusing, is on the Arctic Circle. The ecliptic plane and the horizon plane can be identical, and it's almost impossible to even know where the Ascendant is, and second by second it's jumping pretty chaotically. And as you get a few miles away from the ecliptic plane, it's still speeding along very fast and will jump 180 degrees. So it gets hard to know where it is. And then as you get further from the ecliptic plane, if you go above the Arctic Circle, the Ascendant can go retrograde, but it doesn't go as fast, so we can get a better idea of where it is. But then we have the problem of jumping 180 degrees. So the Ascendant does strange things at extreme latitudes, and at the Arctic Circle is basically impossible to define. Now, this problem of the Arctic Circle is a real problem because there is a village on the Arctic Circle. I found one in Finland called Rovaniemi. Rovaniemi is about 6 miles below the Arctic Circle, has 61,000 people. The University of Lapland is there, has about 5,000 students. So, a typical town of 61,000 people, maybe it spreads a few miles. If zoning permits, there could be somebody living on the outskirts, outside town, maybe has a cabin out there, and possibly there's a little development. It's possible. I didn't look for other cities. Maybe in Russia there's one right on the Arctic Circle. So in theory, there may be somebody living right on the Arctic Circle. And every day the ecliptic plane and the horizon plane become identical, and the Ascendant sort of disappears for a moment and becomes chaotic for a little while. If a baby is born then, or an animal, or a company begins, it'd be pretty hard to know how you would interpret that. So, in terms of the Ascendant, and it leads to all kinds of questions about what house systems we use. Some people like the whole sign houses now. But you still have the problem, we don't really know where the ascendant is. Interestingly, for many years I've been using two house systems, one which is equal from the ascendant, which would become chaotic and bizarre at certain times on the Arctic Circle, and also flip around and do crazy things anywhere above the Arctic Circle. But the midheaven, I also use equal houses from the midheaven, and it remains, we know where the midheaven is, and it behaves more reasonably, we could say. I mean, we know where it is, we know how it moves, it doesn't act chaotically, so that's kind of interesting. So there you go. Just a curious thing in astrology, that there are charts. I'm sure somebody's been born on the Arctic Circle at some point, or will be, or it could happen right around that time of day when we don't really know where the ascendant is. So, if you're doing charts for people and they're born right near that Arctic Circle, you could do a little time adjust and see how sensitive it is to the time, so that you know how well you can depend on that ascendant position. So there you go. Information. I don't have any complete resolution to all this, other than it does make me like my equal houses from the midheaven a lot more. But there it is. It's just good to know about. Maybe uncomfortable or confusing, but that's okay. We're not going to learn anything unless we face these things. Okay, so there we go. That's our lecture for today. Let me just see if I have any other notes. I don't think I do. I think that's all I had. That's all my words of wisdom for the day. Okay, my friends, I hope you enjoyed that, got something out of it. A little maybe cognitive dissonance or something for you to sort out. Very interesting. Take care. God bless. Namaste.